It's 2:02. Thank you everyone for joining. My name is Shema Bintok. I'm part of the Dubai Future Foundation. I'm co-leading the University Entrepreneurship Program with my colleague Khalid Naimi. A quick introduction about UEP. UEP is the University Entrepreneurship Program. It's an initiative that aims at achieving the goals of the 50 Years Charter, sixth article announced by His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, in creating economic and creative zones in university that allow university not just graduating students, but also graduating successful entrepreneurs. UEP Talks is a monthly series that aims to bring together inspirational entrepreneurs to share their inside stories to inspire and impact our young entrepreneurs through one-to-one interviews, talks, panel discussions, and more. Today we have Omar AlMheiri, the co-founder of Letswork. Omar, as a 25-year-old, he graduated in 2017 from Northeastern University in Boston with a degree in electrical engineering. Right after graduation, he was selected for the E25 entrepreneurship program at Emar, where he launched Let's Work with his co-founder Hamza Khan. Let's Work offers affordable and flexible, inspiring workspaces for SMEs, freelancers, and the cooperations across the country. Amar is also a member of the Private Sector Youth Council in the UAE. Hello, Amar, and welcome today. Aside from the bio that I've just mentioned, we would like to know more about you. Please tell us more about yourself.
Sure. First of all, thank you for having me. I hope I can do the session justice. As you mentioned, I studied in Boston, so my passion was always in the tech sector. So electrical engineering was kind of the go-to for that, though, at least the one that made sense back then. During university, I was always involved into small projects, such as we made like a turtle feeder counter. So a device that basically feeds turtles automatically without needing to kind of develop anything. And these kind of projects led me into wanting to start my own business. I always felt like starting a business is kind of a cool lifestyle and work balance, which is something that I was really interested in. During my last year at university, I actually worked in Dell EMC. So I was part of the server hardware team. So we test different servers, so big machines. We put them through stress tests, temperature tests. So I worked in a big lab in a massive corporation, which was interesting and it was a lot of fun. However, I just felt like there was no kind of real significance in the work I was doing. And I felt like there was a lot more that I could achieve. That's when I heard about the E25 program, which was started by Mohammed AlMheiri, the chairman of Emar. He wanted to invest in people under the age of 25 to come up with different startups that synergize with Emar's core competencies, whether it was real estate, leasing, entertainment, or hospitality. So I decided to take that path, which was kind of a bit irregular. You know, graduating with electrical engineering, you'd think you'd go into some engineering field, whereas this was kind of a leap where they were kind of hiring us to just come up with crazy ideas that could potentially work. So that's kind of the start of how we, both my partner and I, got into Let's Work.
Okay. Do you want to mention more about Let's Work, about your startup?
Sure, yes. So it started out of a need that we couldn't find a place to work from in Dubai. Growing up, so my partner Hamza, he studied in London. So both him and I were kind of used to working from cafes and just anywhere that you could find a nice quiet space with good coffee. So when we first started that at the E25 program, we couldn't find a space for us to work that was affordable or just a place that we could call our home. And as well as that, be around people within the startup atmosphere. So we actually ended up going to Rove downtown and we saw the amount of people that were actually working from there. And we thought, hey, this could actually be a decent place for an office. I could run my whole business out of here. So we started with 4 locations and about 20 members. And this was all coordinated over WhatsApp. We didn't actually have an app or anything to kind of run the operations. It was done manually by us. It was a disaster, but it worked. It was enough for us to kind of go ahead and say to Emar, we have 20 customers that actually paid us money for this service that doesn't technically exist right now, but the concept is there. After that, we found one of the actual members. He was a developer. So we asked him, hey, can you put something together to help us kind of run the operations? With that, we were able to grow to about 2,000 members. And all of these were kind of just people who were looking for a space to work from, wanted to save some money. So instead of paying for 3 coffees and a meal, I'm kind of the best customer in this restaurant right now. So I should be kind of rewarded, and I shouldn't have to feel out of place by using this space as my office. And this was about 3 years ago. So back then it wasn't as common as it is today, where people are working from different cafes. And the whole purpose of it was to kind of stray away from people going to work from Starbucks and Costa, these chains. We wanted to empower the local concepts. So these restaurants that are beautiful and maybe don't have the footfall that they want during the day, but it's a great place to work from. So that was the kind of shift. And then after a year, when we hit the 2,000 members mark, that's when we said it's time to develop an app. We wanted to give it a bit more functionality. We wanted to accelerate the growth that we had. And alhamdulillah, today we actually just recently hit 20,000 members, and we have about 50 locations and a completely new product also. But I'll talk about it more in the session.
I have a question. So before the app, you were using just WhatsApp?
Yeah, so in the beginning, we were designing these membership cards with a date on them. And if someone paid the hotel, the membership fee, we would get their number and we would WhatsApp them just a membership card. So it was just something to what's it called, to get the wheels started. A lot of people have my own numbers since those days, so it's kind of annoying now, but we have to do it somehow.
Okay. So let's talk about the challenges that you faced. Like even during the COVID situation and the co-working spaces where we've all been locked up, like we weren't allowed to go to the offices. What challenges did you face, and how did you overcome those challenges?
There's before COVID, obviously there was challenges too.
Yeah.
So I'll talk about that first. What the main kind of challenge we had was, first of all, was just convincing people that this was a membership. Remote working wasn't a term used back then. We were lucky freelancer license was launched at the same time that we launched. So a lot of people were already not looking to buy an office or spend millions on fit out. So just getting that communication across, that saying, okay, this is a restaurant, yes, but you can actually pay to call this your office, and not just this place, but multiple places across Dubai. So just getting that kind of communication was a challenge. And then with any startup, I mean, it was basically Hamza and I in the first year and a half of operations. That was so hard. It's a full-time job. When you have customers who are constantly using your service and you don't have customer service staff or any kind of PA or any kind, it was me and Hamza just dealing with it day by day. So there was that, I think, was the biggest challenge, and it really did it was a lot of stress for us, but alhamdulillah, now we have a good team who can help us with that. And now when we come to COVID, so it was fortunate for us that January, February, and March were our best months yet. I don't know what happened. We kind of ramped up, and we had a lot of customers coming in, downloading, buying memberships. So for us in March, I have an email that I sent to Hamza a week before the COVID lockdown happened, where I said, we need to rethink our KPIs because I think we're undervaluing. I think we could definitely do a lot better. And a week later, everything shut down. Biggest fear for us was, okay, we had to develop something for the purpose of, okay, let's pause everyone's memberships, and how are we going to bring it back? So that was kind of just a quick, let's fix the development. So I'm in charge of the tech. So I run a team that's mostly based in India, and we kind of think of new developments for the app. Obviously, biggest challenge was zero revenue during that time, zero operations. Everything was shut down. All businesses kind of went through the same thing except e-commerce. For us, it was a blessing in disguise. It allows us to just kind of slow down and think about strategy. How do we rebuild? What's not working? What do we change? And then as well as that, we said, what's going to be needed post-lockdown that will help us run these operations. So alhamdulillah, we launched a new platform. It's kind of the Airbnb for meeting rooms and offices. So We still got inquiries during the lockdown, people saying, "Oh, I'm not going to be using my office anymore. Uh, can we lease out our office? Can we add our office to the space?" So that was kind of something that we've been wanting to do for a while. But now we built a platform that allows people to book meeting rooms and offices for an hour, a day, a week, a month, instantly. So there's no need to call a hotel, find out the rates and stuff. It's basically like you're going to book a hotel room or Airbnb, for example. Um, so it was a lot of development on that end. And the challenge was right after lockdown was a bit more relaxed, was getting people to come back to our spaces. It was really interesting because we had a lot of freelancers and entrepreneurs using our spaces, which then converted to corporates. So corporate companies were still operational. Unfortunately, a lot of freelancers lost the kind of gigs that they had and jobs they had. So a lot of them actually had to leave the country.
Yeah.
But alhamdulillah, a lot of corporates started signing up because they didn't want to work from home. Um, but yeah, and we did something else where we converted some of the hotel rooms into private offices. And this was huge for the people with families or shared living. They wanted to get out the house, but they wanted to feel safe. So hotels were at not 100% occupancy, obviously. So we converted some of those rooms into a private office for them, which kind of blew up really well. We got a lot of PR from it, and people are still booking it today, surprisingly.
So the hotel rooms, you book them as a co-working space for people, right?
Yeah. So
I
if
find it
you're
on the app. That's exciting.
Yeah, so if you want your own office for the day, you can book it, and it's just we've changed the hotel room. We put a desk in, menu, and you can get coffee and all that stuff.
Yeah. And the meeting rooms that you've mentioned, is it also part, like, is it in the hotel? Where are they based, the meeting rooms?
So far, we have a great team. There's two girls in my team, Daria and Ilyana. They went out and they really signed up quite a big amount of hotels.
Yeah.
So we're all around Dubai right now, and some in Sharjah too. These are hotels or business centers, and we basically just listed all their meeting rooms and offices, and people can book them. Even some of the other co-working spaces that were seen as competition, we
Yeah.
thought maybe our platform can help give them a push to actually stay alive, because we want them part of our ecosystem. So we ended up partnering with them as well.
Exciting. That's really exciting. So this all happened after the COVID situation.
This was Zoom calls day in, day out with the team, thinking about what's next.
Yeah.
And we were very lucky with when the government started relaxing things and started opening it up. We were done with our development then, so we could have launched it at the same time.
Exciting. Okay. Talking more about entrepreneurship, have you ever thought of the question why innovation and entrepreneurship is so important?
Yeah, I mean, all the time. I think Dubai is really interesting because it's kind of like a entrepreneurship playground. The market isn't as big as if you were to launch a concept, let's say in New York or London, but it gives you kind of that good market size to really refine a product. If you come up with something that people want to buy, you have a good testing ground and something that you can do like a cookie cutter approach and just
Yeah.
launch in places. Why it's important? I mean, we I think we're just kind of preparing for the next generation. So I hate to say this, but my parents weren't involved as tech as much as we were. And then I have a younger sister. She's much more involved in tech. Things that I used to use, like floppy disks and stuff, are non-existent to her. So I think it's the whole purpose of staying relevant with whatever's happening in the world. And I think entrepreneurship gives people the opportunity to kind of make money, number one, but then make money with a passion. I
Yeah.
think the term entrepreneurship has been misconceived with the Facebooks and the Ubers and like, let's say TikTok now. So these are the startups started by one or two people. Entrepreneurship can be a landscaper who does it freelance, or a graphic designer who does their work freelance. That's an entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
They have a product themselves and they're doing it for themselves, and they own that company, and the work they put in is will sustain them in the work that in the income that they want. So that's kind of the misconception with entrepreneurship. Everyone thinks I need to build something that's going to be IPO'd or a unicorn in Silicon Valley, which is not the case at all. Um, and I think the other thing is the kind of skill set that you get from entrepreneurship. You end up doing everything from uh, issuing invoices that I had no idea how to do, working with banks. The only bank I did was my personal banking, but actual business banking is a thing. Facebook, Google, Instagram ads. I don't know any of this stuff, but we've learned it over time. Even customer service, which is huge, and you don't understand the kind of voice you have to put on. All of this stuff is skills that you pick up on the way that will help you in any kind of job.
Okay. Um, can you mention more about the skills that you think it's important, let's say for the students, for the entrepreneurs, that you think they're so important?
Important in the sense to start a business?
Start a business, yes.
Okay, so that the issue is it depends what you're starting, right? If you're skilled, if we just say generic business that you're going to own yourself, I think the most important thing is you need to be kind of agile. You need to not be fixated on the first idea that you come up with.
Yeah.
A lot of people are going to tell you it's not going to work. So I think you need to be stubborn, but not stubborn at the same time, to the extent that you won't listen to anyone and you're going to follow your path. That's kind of a generic, I think, more personality than a skill that you might need. I think skills, you need to figure out that who you're going to bring in to your team.
Yeah.
So in terms of skills, I'll talk about myself and my partner Hamza. We are completely different in terms of skills, but we have the same kind of vision of where we want Letswork to go. I'm more kind of relaxed and less detail focused, more of a holistic view on things like, okay, we'll work out in the end. Hamza is very detail oriented, which allows him to see things that I miss in contracts, in any of the work that we do. In our emails and all our marketing. So that's a really good skill to have, because you want to have this kind of professional image and professional brand. Whereas sometimes there's things that I'll completely miss. I'll push a notification with spelling mistakes and stuff. We all make these mistakes.
Yeah.
But then on the other side, where I'm a bit more relaxed, I can kind of take a step back and say, this is okay, but I think we're going to invest too much time and maybe the outcome isn't what we want. So complementing skills. So I think a skill for that would be finding the right person and kind of knowing where you want to take your business. But unfortunately, it depends on what kind of field you're trying to grow a business in.
Okay. What are the most valuable key learning would you say?
So key learning. So for me, we had the way tech companies work is you'll have the CTO who's in charge of the tech, then a product manager, and then under the product manager is the developers. So the whole purpose of the product manager is to basically assign tasks to the developers to ensure that we can push an update in 2 weeks. That was one skill that I picked up because I ended up becoming the product manager, where I hear the team out and I hear what kind of business case we want. We just launched guest passes. So I have to take that and see, how do we kind of relate that into tech? What do we do? Who needs to work on what? So managing different people is a huge thing that you're never going to be ready for, to be honest. Because at the end of the day, I hate to say it, they work for you, they're part of your team, and they're looking for guidance to actually put them in the right way. And I can say safely, I'm better than I was, but I'm still nowhere near what I want to be in terms of managing people. And then I think, what else did I learn? Customer service.
Yeah.
You completely switch your mindset. Before this, I just kind of, when I buy something from a shop or when I use a service, you don't think about the effort that they go through or the kind of communication they have to give to you. You forget completely, and you don't know what kind of processes are in place for that to happen. Once you start running your own business, you'll understand a lot more, and maybe you'll feel a bit more like sorry for them if you give them a hard time for services and different companies. So I think that was a huge learning curve, and still today we're dealing with customers that range from freelancers to corporates to CEOs. So there's different kind of ways to deal with different kind of people. But again, the customer's always right. So you have to kind of just hold back on frustration and just smile through it, I guess.
Yes, I agree. Customers are always right, and it's very important to have customer satisfaction as well.
Exactly.
Um, okay, let's talk more about you. Where do you see yourself in the future?
So, I mean, we have this talk as a team always. Where do we want to be? Where do we want to grow? The easy answer would be we want to grow Letswork to different countries. Our plan was to go to the GCC, but this was after COVID kind of just took a turn to put our plans on pause for a bit. We want this to be a global company. We want to expand our products, expand our reach, and grow it to a decent team and have it running fluidly. I mean, that's the kind of dream for a lot of startups here.
Inshallah.
Um,
Is there any new projects, upcoming projects at Let's Work you'd like to mention?
Yeah, so we just launched the guest pass feature, which has been fun. We've seen kind of we didn't expect this kind of uptake. Basically, if you have friends and you want to invite them and pay on their behalf, you can do that. As well as that, if you have friends that don't want to download the app, you can check them in yourself. So that was a pretty interesting feature. One that we're working on right now, we hope to launch by the end of the month, is team passes. So how do we allow one person to basically manage their whole team and allow them to use Letswork? So as I mentioned, we had a lot of corporates using us. For a while, we had Kareem, we had Fetcher, we had Johnson and Johnson. So these are all companies that would have 20 to 50 employees, all remote working. And this was before COVID. They had that kind of culture. And so it was kind of annoying for us to manage it, where we would just want to give that functionality directly to whoever's going to manage the team. They can change their memberships and all that.
Okay, interesting. That's very exciting, and I wish you and the company all the best. Is there any advice you'd like to give to our young entrepreneurs and students who
Yeah,
are starting their own business?
Sure. It's a recycled quote, but I think always start small and fail really fast. Because the WhatsApp example I gave, why we did that was we didn't want to kind of be in a situation where we asked for 100,000 dirham to develop an app for a concept that we don't even know works.
Yeah.
I've seen it happen too many times here, where people just immediately think this is going to work without even testing it out. And when I mean test it out, is actually get someone to pay for a service or something, whether you do it manually, whether you run it through your phone or just a simple website. Do that and have a go. And this also correlates to restaurants and cafes. I know a lot of people here want to open up restaurants, cafes in the F&B sector. There's ways to test out now. You can actually set up a cloud kitchen or delivery from home. Test out, do people actually want to pay for your service before you start investing millions into a business that you don't even know is going to succeed? So that's my kind of go-to. I think nowadays the market is so volatile. I think you need to be very, very smart on what you spend on and what your go-to market strategy is.
Okay, interesting. Before we wrap up and we start taking questions from the audience, is there anything else that you think should be covered? You would like to mention?
I think we covered pretty much all of Letswork. I don't know. I think Dubai is interesting. Just like have a look. If we're gonna talk to students here in the region, just have a look at how much has changed since pre-COVID to what it is now. Is there any gaps? Are there any things that you think maybe are missing? Can we implement something? I think it's a perfect opportunity post a pandemic like this to come up with really, really interesting and innovative ideas. And luckily, we're in a country and a city that is very open. I mean, you see other countries in lockdown. Like thank God we have a government like ours that kind of really did really well in kind of closing off the borders, making sure everyone's safe, and then
Yeah.
starting again. So we're very lucky to be here, and I think to the students they have kind of an opportunity now to basically come up with new ideas. The playing field has been leveled right now.
Yeah.
A lot of businesses had to close down. Do you think you could do you could do something better than someone else? Now's probably the time to try.
Okay, interesting. Thank you so much, Emma. I have a few questions from the registration. One question: how are you able to integrate empathy and authenticity into Let's Work?
Empathy and authenticity.
Yeah.
Okay, it's a tough one. Empathy. Um, I mean, we were on first name basis with all our members. We would always go visit them. We kind of we wanted to build a community, right? Once it grew to much larger numbers, we couldn't do that. We'd have events, and that kind of taps into the authenticity of it. You were getting direct feedback from us, right? We were messaging you. We were asking the customers, what do you guys think? Do you want new locations here? We would call them. So I think we strayed away from doing just a corporate kind of business, and we were more in touch with our customers. And as well as that, through our marketing, I mean, I have to give props to Hamza and the marketing team, so Thomas and them. They really come up with really cool content that is basically us. We're not kind of putting on some sort of brand. It's the team that are kind of pushing these things out, such as our notifications, our Instagram videos. So I think that's how we kept it authentic. We kind of portrayed our team in the marketing that we push out.
Okay. I have another question from Mu'tasam. How did you handle the cash flow pressure during when you first opened Let's Work at the beginning of the project?
So we employed something called the bootstrap model.
Yeah.
We managed to keep, because we're a completely asset light business. So with bootstrapping, what you end up doing is whatever revenue you generate, you put it back into the business.
Yeah.
This allows you to basically grow at an organic pace, and never kind of be in debt where you end up spending millions or thousands on marketing. Spend what you've earned and just keep that cycle until you can kind of get enough data to validate and to actually inject some more funds into the business.
Okay. Okay, I have also a question from my colleague Khalid Naimi. During the early years of building Let's Work as a startup, what was your major source of support? Did university have any role in supporting you?
My university personally,
Yes.
no, because they're based in Boston, so I don't think the impact would have been there. The major source of support would have to be our initial venues. So Rove Hotels really helped us when we first launched. The Rove, they had 4 locations also when we first launched, and they helped us. They got the word out. But I think the biggest source of support, and till today, it's still kind of like it racks our brain, where we look at our marketing spend, and still direct searches are the most, which is basically word of mouth, is someone telling someone, hey, have you heard of Letswork? So the referrals were the biggest support. So our own members helped us grow to what we needed to be, which has been huge over the years.
Okay. Okay, I have also a few more questions. If you've given a chance to change something of what you've done when starting Let's Work, what would it be and why?
I would have employed a customer service staff to manage the complaints. No, I think what would we change? I think this whole meeting room and office thing goes really hand in hand with our business. And I think during the times where events were at kind of an all-time high, I think if we launched the business with that, it would have been great. And I think that's kind of the major thing we would have changed. Obviously, knowing the success, the ease of work with the app, we would have maybe done that first too, but again, we didn't validate the concept just yet. So I think that's the biggest thing. If we launched with that product too, I think it would have been a bit more kind of tailored to a bigger market. Because when we started, we wanted people who remote work and work from their laptops, but instead we could have captured people who just want meeting rooms and professional offices too. I think that would have been interesting.
Okay. One more question is, do you think we have enough technical talents in the region?
Technical talents. In what sense? So the people actually living here, or?
Yeah. Do you think, do you have enough of technical talents?
I think now that, yeah, there's a lot more than what it used to be. There's a lot more businesses established here that have good developers, good coders. So you can definitely find someone who will help you manage the product. Unfortunately, the majority of really good developers are based abroad. I think we've yet to kind of pass that. And what I mean by good developers is people with years of experience who've worked for different corporations. In terms of technical talents, I mean, yeah, have a look at Souk, Noon, Kareem. If we're talking about these guys who came up with these kind of concepts, yeah, I think we're doing great, to be honest. We are very ahead of the game in terms of technical talent and people coming up with technical solutions to solve different ideas.
Okay. I have also a few more questions before we wrap up. When hiring a team, what are some of the first employees needed, and what do you look in for hiring in your team?
So when we first started, we'd hire interns just because I think, again, we wanted someone who's kind of new to this as well. I wouldn't go ahead and hire a person with 7 years of experience when I don't even have a couple of years of experience, right, to manage it. And then something that Hamza always says is, would you be trapped in an elevator with that person? I think our team, I'm very lucky to be part of it. We have such a good culture where we've always been remote working, which is cool. So everyone can work from wherever they want. And as well as that, when there's business, we're all kind of serious because we have that ownership. It's such a small team. Everyone's kind of has to do what they want to do. And on the other end of it is you want someone who's very proactive. We always look for that. Just because when working for a startup, you're not going to have a role. You're not going to sit at a desk and do A to Z every day. You're going to have to be proactive. You're going to have to do things on your own and find out things on your own, whether they're from the kind of business perspective or developers. So my developers also, they poke holes in the code that we have in the app. They come back with suggestions and say, hey, I think we need to do this. So always someone who's proactive. I think that's kind of my number one like aim to find in a new teammate.
Exactly. Okay, I have also a few more questions.
Sure.
One question is, how can you time the launch of a tech startup in Dubai?
Time the launch of a tech startup. So I think there's no timing, right? You just kind of set a date that you wanna launch. A lot of people have asked me this, like, why did you launch then? You kind of, when you're in a startup, you find it very easy to be lazy in the beginning days. You're gonna try to facilitate all these different scenarios. You're gonna think, what if this happens? What if this happens? As long as you have a launch date that you and your team have in mind, then you can work towards that goal. And just launch it, and because it's going to change in a couple of months. So with a tech development, it's mostly going to be based on how long it's going to take for that tech to be developed, right? So in parallel, you can say, I want to build an app, and they tell you it's going to take 3 months, whoever's going to build it. So give yourself 3 months to come up with the business proposal for it, set up everything else, and call that your launch date. It really depends on when you're ready, but it is very important to have a launch date, because then you'll just be working up in the air, delaying things for weeks on out.
Okay. Also, I have another question is there something you learned during the pandemic that you would change or adjust for Let's Work or yourself?
Yeah, the big one is so you end up kind of thinking, okay, what are we gonna do where do we want to be in 6 months or a year?
Yeah.
Um, Obviously, that completely changed. Everything was changed, and I'm not talking only for startups. I'm talking for corporations too. Everyone had to kind of redefine where they wanted to be. So I think one interesting thing that came out of this is where do we want to be in 6 months, and where do we want to be a week from now, 2 weeks from now? Because you never know what could happen, right? No one was prepared for this kind of thing.
Yeah.
Um, I think having short-term plans and plan Bs and plan Cs are very, very important, especially for companies that deal with massive amounts of revenue and massive amounts of labor. You don't want to end up having to let go of your whole team just because business shuts down. You should pivot and think of different ways to stay afloat, if possible, obviously.
Exactly. Okay, I have a few questions. We still have 5 minutes for the session.
Sure.
One question is, would you introduce your product on WhatsApp as a chat bot to leverage the large number of WhatsApp active users?
Um, so we have our own chatbot that we've integrated into our app. Um, WhatsApp gets a bit complicated because you have one number that's dealing with it. I think it gets a bit messy. I'd recommend this platform called Intercom. You can see a lot in terms of what the user device is, which helps you debug. You can set up your own kind of chatbot and change them. And as well as that, it becomes your CRM and marketing platform. So uh, much better than WhatsApp, in my opinion. But I definitely think WhatsApp will redefine and probably come up with something better.
Okay. Um, would you hire fresh graduates? And if yes, where can we apply? This is from one of the participants, from one of the
Yeah,
attendees.
of course. Yeah, we've I think two of our employees right now who have been with us for 2 years were fresh graduates when they first joined. Yeah, for sure. If you can prove yourself, then yes. And if you want to apply, we have I think the job posting is on our website, so letswork.io, or I think you can message us on Instagram or anything like that, or through the app as well. You
Yeah.
can do.
Okay. That's really great. Um, and internships as well, right?
Yes, we are looking for an intern right now. There's a lot of interviews that are scheduled for this week, so try to get in.
Interesting. Okay, another question from Sharifa. If corporate organizations need to sign a contract with Let's Work Group, any quotation do you have offered to them, and do you have it with large scale or example for 50 members?
Yeah, of course we do. We've done stuff like that in the past with different companies. So for sure, if you just reach out to us on the app, we'll be able to set that up. But yeah, we do. We've done different packages for different corporates. Everyone has their kind of own requirement, for sure.
Okay. I have two more questions.
Sure.
Do you have any suggestions into finding a technical partner or any great co-founder?
Um, that's always tough. Um, Technical partner is a challenge because you want someone with the business mindset and the what's it called, the technical part of it too. Magnet is a really good platform that you can find if you're looking to hire a co-founder or a technical partner. One thing that I will suggest that's worked out in the past is if you're building something and let's say the apps that I like are like Kafu, Deliveroo, look for who's working in there. Look for who's working in an app that you like, and just offer them the position. See if they're willing to jump the boat and help you start something. Um, that's always an interesting thing to do because they can bring the best of that app onto your app. Most likely, they'll know
Yeah,
what needs to be done. LinkedIn is the best for that, in my opinion.
interesting. All right. Okay. There's another question also. In what ways we can find good developers other than outsourcing into different countries?
Again, another tough one. So there are developers based in the
Yeah.
UAE. I know that for a fact. Defining a good developer is the first thing that you're going to do is the years of experience that they have. But I think communication is probably the most important thing. Can you actually speak to these developers? Do they understand the business that you're growing? Again, you can go on Magnet or LinkedIn to find someone who's based in Dubai. The need for it to be based in Dubai, you're going to end up the cost of living is a lot higher in the UAE. So unless you need someone to sit next to you and actually code the app for you, then that's probably a good way to do it.
Yeah.
And you can do job postings or again on Magnet. But I'd always recommend coders abroad. I think that way it's easier, and you have people working on different days. We operate Sunday to Thursday, but some of my coders work from Monday to Friday, so we have that kind of layover.
Okay. Um, okay, I have one more question also before we wrap up. Do you see Let's Work being involved with social responsibility in the future? For example, things like community work or climate change?
Yeah, actually, interesting you say that. So we've just we're in partnership with a charity right now. We're just integrating them into the app. There's just kind of a donate button. As well as that, social responsibility. Hamza had a very interesting thing. He said, I mean, don't quote me on this, but he said, "What if we plant a tree for every check-in that we have?" Which
Okay.
could be cool. There's different companies that are around, so stuff like that could make a difference. But yeah, for sure, once we have the bandwidth, we're definitely going to look into stuff like that.
Sounds interesting. For planting a tree for every check-in. It's really interesting.
Yeah, could be cool.
All right. I think that's it for today. We reached the time. Thank you so much, Omar, for joining us today. It was really a pleasure. And thank you so much, everyone, for joining. And yeah, that's it. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.